Imagine you're standing in a villa outside Rome. The year is 73 after Christ. You're 15 years old. You just married a centurion you met yesterday. Your father arranged it. You had no choice. The wedding ceremony followed every ritual, the sacrifice, the vows, the procession. Everyone congratulated your father. Your new husband received claps on the back. No one asked how you felt. Now the feast is over. The guests are drunk. Your husband takes your hand. He leads you away from the crowd. You walk toward his quarters. Your heart is pounding. You're terrified. But you tell yourself it will be over quickly. You reach the door. He opens it. You step inside, and you see them. 5 men, sitting on benches, drinking wine, smiling. They're staying. Here's what most people don't understand about Roman marriage. The wedding night wasn't private. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't even about the couple. It was a public demonstration, a political act, a systematic ritual designed to establish dominance and ensure control. This wasn't deviance. This wasn't cruelty for its own sake. This was standard practice, documented in marriage contracts, defended in legal texts, recorded by Roman historians. Let me show you exactly what happened in that room. If you believe that the documented records of history's most calculated systems of power must be remembered, consider liking this video and subscribing. Your support unearths more accounts from the darkest corners of ancient empires. The ritual had a specific structure. Romans called it the deductio in domum mariti, the leading of the bride to the husband's house. Sounds simple, right? It wasn't. After the wedding ceremony, the bride was escorted to the groom's home by a procession of witnesses, family members, friends, often fellow soldiers if the groom served in the military. The procession was loud, intentionally loud. They sang bawdy songs. They made crude jokes. They shouted encouragement to the groom. They mocked the bride's fear. The bride was expected to cry. If she didn't cry, that suggested she wasn't a virgin, that she'd done this before. That would shame her family. So you cry, not just because you're afraid, but because crying is required. Your tears are part of the performance. The procession arrives at the groom's house. You're led inside. You assume the witnesses will leave. They don't leave. In military marriages, especially among centurions and lower officers, the custom was explicit. The groom's comrades would enter the bedchamber. They'd drink. They'd watch. Not through a door. Not from outside. Inside the room. Sitting. Watching. Roman writers document this. Catullus, in his wedding poems written in the 1st century BC, describes witnesses staying in the room. He presents it as normal, expected, traditional. Martial, writing in the 1st century AD, includes jokes about wedding night witnesses in his epigrams. He treats it as common knowledge, as something his audience would find amusing. Plutarch, in his writings on Roman customs, mentions that military marriages often included fraternal witnesses to ensure the union was properly consummated. Properly consummated. Think about what that means. It means the witnesses had a role, a purpose. They weren't just there. They were verifying, judging, ensuring the bride performed correctly. Here's the psychology behind it. You're 15. You've never done this. You don't understand what's about to happen. And there are 5 grown men watching you. Men who serve with your husband. Men who share his loyalty. Men who view you as property. You can't refuse. You can't cry too much. You can't ask them to leave. Because your husband invited them. Because this is tradition. Because refusing would insult his honor. Your husband's honor matters more than your body. So it happens. In front of them, they watch, they comment, they laugh. Roman wedding poetry from the period includes lines where witnesses make jokes during consummation. They critique the bride's reactions. They encourage the groom. This was entertainment. Your trauma was their bonding ritual. Why? Why did Rome systematize this? Here's what should terrify you about Roman culture. Everything served the state, every ritual, every custom, every law. Marriage wasn't about love. It was about producing legitimate children. Children who would be citizens. Citizens who would serve the empire. The wedding night ritual served multiple functions. First, it verified virginity. If the bride struggled, cried, bled, that proved she was a virgin. If she didn't, questions would be raised. Investigations would follow. Second, it established dominance. The husband's first act as a married man was to assert physical control in front of his peers. That set the tone for the entire marriage. Third, it bonded the men. Shared witnessing of this intimate violation created complicity. The witnesses now had investment in the marriage's success. They'd seen the bride's submission. They'd participated in her breaking. That's not romance. That's systematic control. Let me show you specific evidence. The Digest of Justinian, a compilation of Roman legal texts, includes marriage law sections that reference consummation verification. The law specified that witnesses could testify in annulment cases about whether consummation occurred. How would witnesses know? They'd have to be present or very close by. Marriage contracts from the 1st and 2nd centuries AD, preserved in papyri from Roman Egypt, sometimes include clauses about consummation verification. The contracts specify who serves as witness, what they verify. What happens if verification fails? One contract from 142 after Christ, found in Oxyrhynchus, states that the bride's family requires 2 witnesses to confirm the marriage was consummated on the wedding night. The witnesses had to sign a statement. The statement became part of the legal marriage record. Think about that. Your most intimate, traumatic moment became a legal document, signed by men who watched. Here's a case that shows how this destroyed lives. Cornelia of Ostia, 86 after Christ. We know about her because her husband, a junior officer named Gaius Flavius, petitioned for divorce 2 months after marriage. His claim? Cornelia wasn't a virgin on their wedding night. He presented testimony from 3 witnesses, fellow soldiers who'd been present. The testimony survives in a legal fragment. One witness stated that Cornelia showed no pain and did not bleed. Another stated she moved with familiarity, not modesty. Based on that, the marriage was annulled. Cornelia's dowry was forfeit, her reputation destroyed. Her family was shamed. She was 16 years old. No one questioned why 3 soldiers were in the room. No one asked if their testimony might be biased. No one considered that Cornelia might have been too terrified to cry, too shocked to bleed. The men's word was absolute. The woman's experience didn't matter. The fragment is housed in the Bodleian Library at Oxford. You can request to see it. The handwriting is clear. The judgment is final. Cornelia disappears from the record after the annulment. We don't know what happened to her, but we know what happened to Gaius Flavius. He remarried within a year. His second wife was 14. If this moment in history doesn't move you to question how systems of power operate, you're missing the lesson Roman women died to teach. Here's the scale of this practice. Rome conducted hundreds of thousands of marriages during the Republic and Empire. Not all followed the exact same ritual. Regional variations existed. Class differences mattered. But the fundamental structure, documented consummation with witnesses, appears consistently across centuries and regions. Military marriages were the most extreme. Soldiers lived communally. Privacy was rare. The barracks were shared space. A centurion's quarters might have more room, but the expectation of shared experience remained. When a soldier married, his unit attended. They escorted the bride. They entered the quarters. They stayed. Roman military records don't detail this explicitly, but contemporary letters do. We have correspondence from soldiers stationed in Britain, Germany, and Syria. One letter, from a soldier named Marcus to his brother, circa 110 after Christ, describes attending a comrade's wedding. He writes about staying in the room as tradition demands and jokes about the bride's tears. He thinks it's funny. He thinks he's being friendly. He doesn't realize he's describing trauma. That's how normalized it was. Men participated in violating women and thought they were honoring tradition. Act 2 of this machine. What came after? You survived the wedding night. The men eventually left. You're alone with your husband for the first time. You're bleeding. You're in pain. You're traumatized. You don't get to rest. The next morning, the ritual continues. In many Roman marriages, the morning after the wedding night included a ceremony called the pronuba sacrifice. The couple would make an offering at the household shrine. Family members would be present. Questions would be asked. The purpose? To confirm the marriage was successfully consummated. The bride's demeanor would be observed. Her discomfort was expected. Too much comfort? Suspicious. Too much distress? Also suspicious. You had to perform the exact right amount of suffering. The matrons, older married women, would sometimes examine you. Not a formal medical examination like in medieval times, but they'd look at you. Ask pointed questions. Check for blood on your clothing if they could. Your body was evidence. Your pain was proof. If the matrons reported anything unusual, the husband could petition for annulment. The witnesses from the previous night would be called. Their testimony would determine your fate. You had no voice in this. You couldn't defend yourself. Your experience didn't matter. Only what they observed mattered. Here's what Roman law said about this. The Digest of Justinian, Book 23, Title 2, covers marriage dissolution. Section 5 discusses annulments based on non-consummation. The law states that if a marriage isn't consummated due to the wife's unwillingness or physical inability, the husband can dissolve it. How was unwillingness determined? Witness testimony. How was physical inability proven? Medical examination ordered by the husband. The law gave men every tool to destroy their wives. It gave women no protection. Roman women had no legal personhood. They existed under the manus of their father, then their husband. Their bodies belonged to the family. Their suffering was irrelevant. This wasn't accidental. This was the foundation of Roman social order. Think about what this does to a society. When half the population is systematically traumatized, when intimate violence is legalized, when witnesses to violation are celebrated, you create a culture where domination is normal, where suffering is expected, where power is absolute. Rome didn't just tolerate this. Rome required it. Marriage law ensured it. Social custom reinforced it. Literature celebrated it. Ovid's Art of Love, a guide to relationships written in 1 before Christ, includes advice to grooms. He tells them to take what is yours on the wedding night. He advises ignoring the bride's tears because she wants it but won't admit it. That's rape apology in a best-selling book, written by one of Rome's greatest poets, and it was considered romantic, educational, normal. That's how deeply violence was embedded in Roman culture. Here's a specific case that shows the extreme version of this. Tribune Quintus Aelius, 121 after Christ. He married the daughter of a senator. Her name was Julia Secunda. She was 14. He was 35. The wedding was massive. Hundreds of guests, politicians, officers, Rome's elite. The wedding night included not just military witnesses, but political ones. 12 men, including 2 fellow tribunes and several senators. They stayed in the chamber, not for the entire act, but for the beginning. Long enough to verify it started. Long enough to humiliate Julia. We know about this because one of the witnesses, a senator named Cornelius Tacitus, possibly the famous historian, mentioned it years later in private correspondence. He expressed discomfort with the practice. He questioned whether it was necessary, but he participated. He stayed in the room. He witnessed a 14-year-old girl's trauma. His discomfort didn't stop him. It never stopped any of them. Julia Secunda lived in that marriage for 12 years. She had 4 children. She fulfilled her duty. Then she died in childbirth with the 5th. She was 26. She'd spent nearly half her life pregnant or recovering from childbirth. Her wedding night was witnessed by a dozen of Rome's most powerful men. Her pain produced citizens. That's all that mattered to Rome. The correspondence mentioning her is in the Vatican Library archives. Catalog number VAT. Lat. 11,594. It's fragmentary. But it's there. Julia existed. Her trauma was real, and Rome considered it proper. Here's what haunts me about Roman marriage. The system didn't hide what it was doing. The laws were public. The customs were celebrated. The poets wrote about it. The poets wrote about it. They were proud. They thought this demonstrated Roman virtue, Roman strength, Roman order. The ability to systematically violate women wasn't seen as cruelty. It was seen as civilization. That's the thing about institutionalized violence. Once it's systematized, it becomes invisible. People stop questioning it. It becomes tradition. Tradition becomes sacred. Rome ran this machine for over 1,000 years if you count the Byzantine continuation. Millions of women passed through it. Millions of wedding nights. Millions of witnesses. How many Cornelias? How many Julias? The records rarely name them. They record the men, the contracts, the legal disputes. The women are footnotes. Their suffering is context. Their trauma is mentioned only when it caused legal problems. We don't have their voices. We have descriptions of their pain written by men who caused it. That's all that survives. But sometimes, rarely, a woman's voice breaks through. A letter from the 2nd century AD, found in the Vindolanda tablets near Hadrian's Wall. A woman named Claudia Severa writes to her friend Sulpicia Epidina. She mentions her wedding day. She doesn't describe details, but she writes, "I cannot speak of it even now. You will understand when your time comes. Prepare your heart. Prepare your heart. Not prepare yourself. Prepare your heart for breaking." That's all she could say. That's all she was allowed to say. But it tells you everything. Another fragment from Egypt, 3rd century AD. A marriage contract. The bride section includes a line, written in a different hand, possibly hers. "I agree to all that is required, though I wish it were otherwise. I wish it were otherwise." 5 words, 5 words. Buried in legal language. An entire life of suffering compressed into one sentence. She agreed, but she wished it were otherwise. That's as close to refusal as she could get. And it's heartbreaking. These fragments survive by accident. Preserved in dry Egyptian sand. Preserved in military archives at the edge of the empire. Most women's words are gone. Lost. Erased. But these few whispers remain. And they tell us the women knew. They understood what was being done to them. They just had no power to stop it. Here's the question that should keep you awake tonight. Rome is considered the foundation of Western civilization. Roman law, Roman government, Roman culture. We study it in schools. We admire their engineering. We analyze their literature. We call them sophisticated. But this was Rome too. This systematic violation was part of their sophistication. This trauma machine was built into their law. So when we celebrate Rome, what are we celebrating? When we call them civilized, what does that word mean? The aqueducts were built by slaves. The roads were maintained by conquered peoples. The empire expanded through genocide. And the families that ran it were founded on wedding nights like Julia's. Like Cornelia's. Like countless unnamed girls whose suffering built the system. That's not ancient history. That's the foundation we're still standing on. Roman law influenced medieval law. Medieval law influenced modern law. Marriage customs evolved. But the fundamental structure, women as property, men as owners, persisted for centuries. In some places, it still persists. The witnesses left the room eventually. The explicit verification faded, but the assumption that women's bodies belong to systems of power, that never fully disappeared. It just became more subtle, more hidden, more deniable. But the blueprint remains. The pattern remains. And until we confront where it started, we can't dismantle where it leads. That's why we study this, not because Rome is shocking, but because Rome is foundational. The violence isn't an aberration, it's the structure, and the structure is still here. If this exposed something you've never heard before, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we're going to keep uncovering the history they tried to bury. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next investigation.